Hi there everyone, I'm Manny, and I'm so happy that you were able to join me here on the third night of Hanukkah. We have a lot of fun in store for tonight. What's that? You don't really know what Hanukkah is all about? Well, it's the third night, and I think I should tell you. Hanukkah is an incredible tale, how this group of Jews reclaimed their temple, rededicated it, and created the Festival of Lights, Hanukkah. To remember this incredible act of heroism and social justice, every year we spend the 8 nights of Hanukkah relighting a Hanukkah. Now you might be wondering, what is a Hanukkah? What makes it a Hanukkah? Well, a Hanukkah is a very special type of lamp. You can see here on my Hanukkah that we have 8 candle holders down here and one that stands above all the rest. This 9th one is called the Shamas, and it's used to light all the other candles. What's so special about Hanukkah is that we get to spend an entire night focusing solely on the miracle of that one night. You see, in ancient days, the Holy Temple of Jerusalem was pillaged, and when finally it was reclaimed, there was only enough oil for its menorah to last one day. But miraculously, the oil lasted 8 days to let us make more oil. So now we're going to be lighting our candles for this night's Hanukkah. And of course we're going to start with the shamas and use it to light each candle starting on the left. One for each night, and tonight is the 3rd night. So please join me while I light the candles. If you're at home, make sure you have a parent help you with lighting the candles. If you're at home, make sure you have a parent help you light the candles. Lovely. We'll start by lighting our shamas, as it is the one that lights all the other candles. And as we begin to light our candles, we'll grab our shamas and light the leftmost candle and begin to say our blessings. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Hanukkah. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Sha'asa nisim lavoteinu bayamim hahem lazman hazeh. Now I'd like to say one more blessing before we continue, and it's the Shahianu. We say the Shahianu at special times in the year and in our lives when maybe we haven't gathered together for a while, or maybe we haven't celebrated in a certain way. Or maybe it's just a special time and we want to acknowledge that it is a special time. So please join me in the Shahianu with the same tune for our Hanukkah blessings. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Shahianu v'kimanu, v'higianu lazman hazeh. Wow. Isn't it amazing to see those Hanukkah candles burning in such a way? I love looking at the lights of the Hanukkah candles, and I fondly remember, in days of my youth, gathering together with my entire family, sitting around a table and eating amazing latkes, and telling stories. And I think that might be why you're all here tonight, to hear a story. Well, I happen to have a very special story for us. This story is called Hanukkah Shmonacha. And I love this story because it tells the tale of someone who is a little closed-minded. Not necessarily mean, but maybe they don't know the true way of the world, the way of compassion and justice, and treating people as we should always treat people, as equals. In this story, our main character, Scrooge Macher, is going to go through an amazing change and find out what it means to be part of a global community and move forward into this new century. So please join me with our book. Old man Scroogemacher was as sour as a pickle, and had a tongue like horseradish. He would lash out at all the workers in his waistcoat factory. "Schwig, no talking during work hours. Schmendrick, pick up the pace, or I'll give you such a zetz. What's the matter with you, you greenhorn klutz? If you ruin the work, you'll pay for it." Poor Gernstein turned as white as a ghost. Pay for it? With 5 mouths at home to feed like baby birds? But this is how Scroogemacher talked, geschrang from sunrise to sunset. Gewalt! There are only so many hours in the day, but Scroogemacher even knew how to fix that. "Adjust the clock," he ordered his foreman, who went behind the wall and turned a small dial. Slowly the minute hand went backward. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. "Oh, Uncle," said Moshe. "Not tonight. Please, it's the last night of Hanukkah. Let them go home to a decent dinner at a decent hour." "What? Are they going to be late for a game of dreidel? And what do they have to gamble? The shmadas on their backs?" "Hanukkah shmanukkah," Scroogemacher said. "It's just another night to me." "Maybe it's more to them," Moshe pointed out. "Them shmem," old Scroogemacher waved his hand. "Always with the them. What do you care about them, you free-thinking young fool?" "Some of them have children," said Moshe. "Children schmildren," grunted Scroogemacher. "So let them work to feed them." "But some of them are children." Moshe followed Scroogemacher, who turned around and narrowed his eyes. "Nephew," he said in a low, weary voice tinged with vinegar. "You've got a lot of chutzpah. I bought your ticket here to the Goldene Medina, not so you could follow me around the floor, hawking my chainik, but to learn the trade, and maybe someday take over for me, like a son. Life here is hard work, and they know it. So why do you cry for them, instead of enjoying your own privileges? Why, if you weren't my nephew, I'd be one of them," Moshe finished. "I'd be working late on this night of miracles." Scroogemacher looked out over the workers, their bony shoulders hunched, their heads bent and faces pale, their eyes fluttering over muddy, sleepless half-circles. And guess what Scroogemacher said? That's right. "Miracles schmiracles." "I think it would be a miracle if you would act like a mensch," grumbled Moshe. But luckily, Scroogemacher didn't hear him. The hum of the sewing machines was too loud. Past the tenements, old Scroogemacher's carriage rolled, leaving long trails in the slush. His nose wrinkled at the smell of laundry water, boiled cabbage, and horses. The moon hung thin and emaciated, yellow like a fingernail, cutting, overseeing the ghostly lines of laundry. It is a chilly night, Scroogemacher thought to himself, shivering beneath his coat. Did Moshe say he would be home late? I think tonight I will go straight to bed. But when he crawled into his bed, Scroogemacher had a funny feeling in his kishkas. It didn't go away, even with the seltzer. That silly butcher sold me bad meat, he thought. It's not the meat, came a voice. A gonif, cried Scroogemacher. But when he sat up, he saw a rabbi, hardly tall enough to see over the foot of his bed, but handsomely dressed in black with a silver tallis, and cheeks as round and red as apples. Don't ask me for alms. I put it in the tzedakah box already, Scroogemacher lied. But the little rabbi only shook his head and chuckled. Oi, Scroogemacher, said the rabbi. You are such a stunk. How do you know my name? Who let you in? Demanded Scroogemacher. I heard that you like to mess around with the clocks, said the little man. It so happens that I do too. I am the rabbi of Hanukkah past, and I have arrived to schlep you to Hotzpalots and back, and you will see that Hanukkah is nothing to sneeze at. Hanukkah shmanukkah, replied Scroogemacher. Probably I ate too much garlic and onions.
I'm seeing a little dybbuk at the foot of my bed. You let yourself in so you can see yourself out." Scroogemacher pulled the covers over his head. But even when he closed his eyes, the rabbi appeared, as if in a dream. When Scroogemacher tried to awaken, it seemed as though he couldn't. "What spell is this?" he wondered. "So, Scroogemacher, do you know from lighting a menorah? 1 candle for each of the 8 nights of Hanukkah, and of course, the 9th candle, the Shamas." "Of course I know the story of Hanukkah. What do you take me for, a nincompoop?" "So, give me a history lesson." Scroogemacher sighed. The faster the better, he thought, and talk is cheap. So he began. "Well, 2,000 years ago, give or take a few, a couple of Meshuggahs captured the Holy Temple and made such a mess." "Like this?" the rabbi asked. And suddenly, all around the 2 men, soldiers of old appeared, smashing furniture with great steely blows from their swords. Flames crawled up the walls, and black smoke billowed. Through the darkness, Scroogemacher could see the soldiers pillage the great temple, gathering the gold. "Vaesmere, what place is this?" Scroogemacher said, cowering behind an overturned table. "The desecrated temple," said the rabbi. "Mid-destruction, front row, center seat." "Gewalt! What a tumult! How can this be? Rabbi, we must flee! King Antiochus' soldiers!" "Nothing doing. They can't see us, my friend. So go on with your story. You were saying?" "Well, the Jews fought back." Scroogemacher trembled. "Nu? Like this?" At once, men in tunics poured in, howling and wielding swords and sticks. Rocks and arrows rained down through the air, with the groans of men taking their last breath and dropping like lead against the stone floor. Scroogemacher found himself screaming, but stopped, awestruck, when there entered a man who moved calmly through the terror and laid low his enemies left and right. "Judah Maccabee," the rabbi of Hanukkah Pass smiled. "Maccabee means hammer, as you know, being such a smarty-pants Scroogemacher." Judah Maccabee was the mighty son of Matthias. When the soldiers came to Modin, they built an altar, and Matthias was ordered to bow down before a statue of a Greek idol and sacrifice a pig to it. Not too kosher, I might add. So, do you remember what happened next? Matthias opened his mouth, and he said that he would never worship idols, and his 5 sons attacked the soldiers. The village joined all the Mishigas, and the soldiers retreated, but they would return, and the Maccabees fled to caves in the mountains, where they formed an army and learned to fight. All from someone standing up to a macher. The rabbi's eyes grew wide, and the vision of the temple dimmed and faded. So, what would have happened if old Gernstein had stood up to you when you docked his pay, I wonder? Maybe you'd find 100 hammers on your head. Pfft! One has nothing to do with the other, shouted Scroogemacher. Who says one has to do with the other? A man can't wonder about hammers? So go on. You haven't told me the end of your story. The Maccabees won the war and returned to the land of Judea. And when they returned to the temple, it was all in disarray. The soldiers had made such a mess. There was so much work to do, but there was only enough oil to last for 1 night. They say it is a miracle that the oil lasted for 8. So there are 8 candles in a menorah and 1 shamus, to remember the rededication of the temple won back by the Maccabees. But the rabbi was hardly listening. He was looking at his watch. He should be here by now. Who? Ah, there he is. Scroogemacher, meet the rabbi of Hanukkah present. Rabbi, this is Mr. Scroogemacher. You'll excuse me for running off, but you see, I'm late for latkes. My wife makes the best latkes, but she will understand why I'm not on time. Everyone works late here in the New World, right, Scroogemacher? He winked, and before Scroogemacher could answer, the little rabbi was gone. Your mouth is hanging open. remarked the new rabbi, tall and pointed as a sewing needle. "You must be hungry. Don't worry. I know where we can grab a nosh." A flight of worn wooden stairs appeared before them. Sounds of people talking and laughing and arguing hummed from behind closed doors. "Follow me," said the rabbi. And Scroogemacher stayed at his heels, grasping tighter the splintery banister as the stairway seemed to grow darker with every landing. What was that, moving in a corner? "The cheaper flats are at the top," the rabbi explained. "Here we are." "At last," huffed Scroogemacher. "So what devilish place is this now?" "Devilish? Why, Scroogemacher, it is the tenement of your own worker, Gernstein. Surely you remember him? You docked him 2 cents for a crooked hem only a few hours ago." "Schweig," ordered Scroogemacher. "Listen, someone is coming. Who knows what bad element frequents such a shoddy tenement at this time of night?" "Oh, Scroogemacher," said the rabbi of Hanukkah present, laughing. "Don't you recognize your own nephew?" "What is that mazik doing here?" Scroogemacher jumped back into the shadows, but the rabbi reminded him that he was still invisible. Up the stairs came Moshe, bounding 2 at a time. In his arms were packages. He knocked on the door, and Gernstein opened it and welcomed him in with wide arms. He called out to announce Moshe, and what followed were warm shouts of greeting and the thunderous sound of the kinder jumping up and down on the floorboards. Scroogemacher and the rabbi slipped inside before the door closed. The apartment was barely 2 rooms, with a single window looking out upon an open wall of bricks. A draft lifted the ragged curtain strung across the pane. The beds were set abreast so that you couldn't even walk. Though it was the middle of the night, everyone was awake. Mr. and Mrs. Gernstein with their older daughter and 4 small children, one still a baby on her mother's hip. Then there were the 5 boarders, a young man with his bubby, and another man wearing an undershirt whose wife and small daughter clapped with glee at Moshe's arrival. At once the table was cleared of the hill of limp pants and waistcoats that had been brought home to work on, and the sewing machine and the hot iron were ushered off to a corner. Moshe opened up his packages wrapped in newspaper from the butcher and baker and grocer with quite some ceremony. Each package met with noisy groans of delight. A loaf of bread, a roasted chicken, smoked herring fit for a czar, and pickles, yes, enough for each child to have their own. And could it be? A square of halva, admired as if it were made of pure gold. Oh, what a happy Hanukkah! Mrs. Gernstein wept and kissed Scroogemacher's nephew on both cheeks. "What is this?" shrieked Scroogemacher. "I pay for his passage here so that he can gallivant with this crowd of riffraff?" Now, soothed the rabbi, his mouth full of herring. "Is that any way to talk about your nephew's future in-laws?" "What?" exploded Scroogemacher. "Look at Gernstein's daughter," said the rabbi, "lovely as a rose." "Rose schmoes," Scroogemacher snorted. "She's skinny as a weed, and with any luck the wind will blow her away like one. I'll fire her tomorrow, and Gernstein too. Then we'll see about getting my nephew a proper match." "Don't tell me you're against love too," the rabbi said, tugging at his beard. "Love is sweet, but with bread it's better," Scroogemacher waved his hand. "You would know, wouldn't you?" At once, the room went dark. Where did everyone go? Scroogemacher whirled around. Again with the dark? To Scroogemacher's amazement, the rabbi opened his waistcoat and pulled out a golden menorah. "Ah," he groaned. "Finally! It was giving me such a cramp, you wouldn't believe. Care to join me in the prayer?" "It's an old world tradition, and I left the old one for the new one," Scroogemacher said. "But do as you please. What's it to me?" The rabbi nodded, and taking the shamas, he lit each candle and recited the ancient lines. The words and the notes plucked at Scroogemacher's heart, like the strains of a fiddle playing a familiar song. But he did not waver until the light cast by the candles revealed a ship's steerage. Scroogemacher gasped. "Oh, Rabbi, don't make me relive this," he pleaded. "You are not reliving anything," said the rabbi. "It is the new crop of your workers, Scroogemacher, crossing the Atlantic as we speak. It seems you will never run out of such poor wretches." But Scroogemacher barely heard him. So carried off was he by his own memories. Who could forget the passage? I was such a young man then. But I remember. Like dogs crowded 1,000 thick in a space that could barely hold 100. 3 weeks of babies crying. No change of clothes. No place to do your private business. People sick all around. Onions would have smelled like perfume after breathing in all the ethers of that Gehenna. "Like dogs, you say?" asked the rabbi. "And so you call your workers. Were they not so brave as you yourself to make such a treacherous journey? To live in the Golden Medina, it is worth such a peril." Scroogemacher straightened himself up. "These people coming have made the right decision, Rabbi. This is the land of opportunity and freedom. Is this not the world for Jews that Judah Maccabee envisioned when he battled so bravely?" "Perhaps it is for you," the rabbi shrugged. "But how about for your dogs, Mr. Scroogemacher? How about for your dogs?" Scroogemacher's eyes surveyed the terrible scene, and beneath Scroogemacher's shoes the boat swayed and lurched, and babies whined in an eerie rhythm that echoed through the hull. All around was a tangle, a human pile of scarves and suitcases and beating hearts. "You look green, Scroogemacher." The rabbi touched his elbow. "Is the butcher's chicken bothering you again?" Scroogemacher tripped unnoticed over the sprawl of sleeping cargo and climbed the stairs to the deck, just as crowded up there, but cut by the breeze of the night air. Air! He breathed it with a great relief. Like the horde around him, he found himself with his head lifted towards the stars. The ship blew its great bass signal, and a cry rose from the crowd. Scroogemacher opened his eyes to see the torch of Lady Liberty like a jewel in the distance. "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free," recited the rabbi behind him. "I remember standing on this deck with my wife," Scroogemacher whispered. "She crossed the ocean twice, you know, here and then back again. When they checked her eyes, she had trachoma, the blinding disease, and got the chalk mark that meant that she was forced to return. We were parted, and I swore that I would send for her." "So did you?" "Why do you ask if you already know? To torture me?" Scroogemacher bit his lip and wiped a tear from his eye before he could continue. "Man plans and God laughs. Surely you know that, Rabbi. By the time I could save enough to send for her, it was too late. She had perished in the violence across the ocean. I gave the ticket to my sister's son. He wasn't even 12 then, so that the army wouldn't be able to take him." Scroogemacher breathed a watery sigh. And that's the way the cookie crumbled. "It's good to hear your heart make a noise besides the clunking of a sewing machine, Scroogemacher." The rabbi spoke gently. "He who has not tasted the bitter cannot know the sweet." Scroogemacher could not help but smile at the rabbi. He looked at the rabbi's menorah until it seemed as if the glow of the statue's torch, growing ever nearer, was the light of the Shamas. That light seemed to grow brighter and brighter and brighter still. Scroogemacher had to block the light with his hand to keep from being blinded. When at last he was able to see, he found himself sitting in a pile of snow. "Hi," said a woman with curly hair and glasses, speaking from behind a scarf wrapped snugly around her neck. She held out her hand to him. Scroogemacher allowed himself to be helped to his feet. He could not help but notice her gloves. "What fine leather!" Scroogemacher said. The woman smiled and obligingly removed a glove for him to examine. "Look at this workmanship! And your coat! Is it wool?" "I'll give you twice whatever you paid," said Scroogemacher. The woman looked amused. "3 times then," he insisted. "I am not a saleswoman, Mr. Scroogemacher. I'm the rabbi of Hanukkah Future." Scroogemacher nearly fell back into the snow laughing. "I'm fainting," he cried. "A woman rabbi? And I suppose women have the vote too!" "Oi, we had better start small," the rabbi rolled her eyes. "Did you have a nice trip?" "I'm feeling a little seasick, to tell you the truth," said Scroogemacher, sighing. "I'm beginning to wonder if I'll ever get home." "You've been so patient. I promise this is the last stop. I just thought there's something or someone that you might want to see." They walked into a school, invisible to all that they encountered. Scroogemacher marveled at the brilliant glow of the flameless fire. "Electric lights," the rabbi explained. She led him into a room, and they floated through the door. "So, a bunch of wilde kinder. What do you want, a medal? And just look at these no-goodniks, at school in the middle of the day while their parents toil. No wonder the girls have to wear pants. Even the teacher is wearing pants. Is this a school for farmers?" The rabbi looked amused again. "So now what's so funny?" "Well, in the future, children in America must go to school. Children are not allowed to work." "School schmool," scoffed Scroogemacher. "I know the law. The children must not be employed unless they can read English. And none under the age of 14. But who doesn't look the other way?" "The laws of the future have changed," said the rabbi. "Look," said Scroogemacher. "These children come from different neighborhoods. It's a mishmash. In the future, all the children in America will be the sons and daughters of people who made a great journey, either long ago or not so long ago. They will not be divided by race or religion, and by class, maybe just a little. But these must all be the children of some privilege," Scroogemacher said, scratching his head. "Or would they not starve from such laws that keep them from working?" "On the contrary, Mr. Scroogemacher, it is a privilege, yes, but a necessary one. They would more likely be hungry if they didn't go to school, and this is common knowledge." "So all of these children can read and write and do sums?" "Most all, yes," the rabbi smiled. "Or else they are learning. They have a chance at growing up to be whatever they dream of being, no matter their race or religion. Jews in America are doctors, lawyers, writers, athletes, performers. Some even ran for president." Scroogemacher whistled through his teeth. "The future is full of geniuses." "Oh yes," the rabbi smiled some more. "And do you know what that means? I'll tell you. It means the days where bosses like you can live off the toil of others are numbered. Kenahora." "What do you mean?" "In your near future, there will be a fire, Scroogemacher. This fire will happen at a factory." And even as the rabbi spoke, the room seemed to grow hotter, and the terrible screams of women seemed to echo around them. Dozens upon dozens will perish in a terrible way. The only good thing to come of this nightmare will be that it is the end of such unsafe, unfair working conditions. People like Gernstein will rise up and no longer bend to the demands of men with the likes of your black heart. Not like that lightweight Gernstein. Scroogemacher could not believe his ears. "Yes, like Gernstein," the rabbi insisted, pushing up her glasses. "You are a villain to these people, Mr. Scroogemacher. The workers will strike, and they won't sew one stitch for you. And even though you think you can, you will not be able to fill their shoes. They will shout at the top of their lungs about their treatment, but you will be too much of a dummkopf to change. Your own nephew Moshe will try to help you do what is right, but again, you do the dummkopf thing." The rabbi shrugged. "You dare to suggest that I have no heart?" "I dare to see what lies in store for you, Scroogemacher." The rabbi calmly removed her glasses and squinted through them. "I see that you will also be insulted by your nephew's suggestion, and decide that you are not speaking to him anymore. He will move out, and that will be that. Kaput. He will go and live with his wife's family and work as a union organizer, trying to get people to ask for what they deserve. But the conditions will be so bad in his crowded tenement that he will die from typhus and bring the sickness to all the children who live there as well. No! Scroogemacher covered his ears, but he could hear her through his fingers. Meanwhile, your business will fail, Mr. Scroogemacher, and you will die poor and lonely in a cold water flat. Scroogemacher stood with his mouth open so wide you could fit in a whole matzo ball. And why not? Wouldn't you be that shocked to hear such bad news? Or, said the rabbi. Or, said Scroogemacher. Yes. Or, repeated the rabbi. Or what? Or is what we're here for, said the rabbi, wiping her glasses. We can go this way, or that way. We can go here or there, up or down, inside or out. Get to the point, Rabbi. My point is, listen to your nephew. He thinks for the future. He will become a great union leader and a well-respected man. He will take over your business with your blessing, and your business will flourish, and he will happily share the profits. Accept his bride, and they will come and live with you and be well. They will have children. They will. See that boy chick there? He's your great-great-great-grandnephew. Your very own bloodline, alive and well even 100 years later. Scroogemacher squinted. He looks a little like me when I was a boy, he thought. Yes, he does. Is he a good student? Asked Scroogemacher. He's in the middle, the rabbi sighed. He's not so good at spelling, but he's better at math. Well, spelling schmelling, said Scroogemacher. He too will grow up to fight for working people. Even though children here and now are well taken care of, there are children all over the world who still work in sweatshops, just like they did 100 years ago. And children who do not get the chance to go to school. There is still such a thing as slavery. Scroogemacher and the rabbi watched as the bell rang, and Scroogemacher's great-great-great-grandnephew waited on the playground for his sister. They watched as the two children had a snowball fight with their friends, and even though their faces were all different colors, and suggested many different countries, they played without the teasing or name-calling that Scroogemacher knew from the children's brawls on the streets of his time. As they walked toward the children's homes, Scroogemacher could not believe the things that met his eyes, and he spun like a dreidel trying to take it all in. Cars and television, people talking on cell phones, advertisements with women wearing bathing suits that made him cover his eyes in embarrassment. But that the children barely seemed to notice these things. Playgrounds, streetlights and skyscrapers, and draping all over all these things were the garlands and glitter of Christmas. Look at all these trees in the store windows, shouted Scroogemacher. Listen to the carols in the street. What is this song? Jingle bells? Well, Christmas is a big part of America, said the rabbi, shrugging. It is a Christian holiday, howled Scroogemacher. I thought you said this country belonged to the Jews as well as the Christians, but everywhere all I see is Christmas. Well, what can I say? They have good decorations, said the rabbi. What sort of rabbi are you, anyway? If this loose talk is the future of future generations, then perhaps it is best that fate plays itself out for me in the first way. The rabbi stopped in her tracks. What do you care if they carry on Jewish tradition? Why are you making such a simus? Weren't you the one who said Hanukkah Shmonukkah? But I was wrong, cried Scroogemacher. Look at the world my great-great-grand-nephew lives in, full of marvels, electric trees, double-stitched leather gloves, pictures that move in boxes, and carts that drive themselves. So, that's progress. I'm not so sure. They don't seem to know where it all came from. Where are the Maccabees who fought so bravely? And if they can't even remember that, then where are the huddled masses yearning to breathe free? Where are the workers who endured such hunger so that someday their children could go to those fancy schmancy schools? Where am I? You, said the rabbi, your history. They followed the children up to their apartment. The children had their own rooms, where more screens glowed and rows of toys were lined up neatly on shelves. The father cooked in the kitchen, stirring soup and searing meat, while he listened to the radio, and the mother soon stepped smartly through the door, carrying a briefcase, and kissed each member of the family. The radiators changed and the sunset melted down in lines of pink and blue over the steaming rooftops. And then, down from the shelf came the menorahs, one for each member of the family. Look! Look! What are they doing? Scroogemacher exclaimed. The family gathered around the table. Out came the candles. 1, 2 for you. 1, 2 for you. And then the father and son put on their yarmulkes, and the mother began to sing, leading the prayer, her gentle breath making the firelight flicker and dance. Baruch atah Adonai. They do remember, breathed Scroogemacher. So, they lit a few candles, said the rabbi. Candles schmandles, said Scroogemacher. Don't you see? It's not about the candles. It's about remembering. And what are they remembering? Asked the rabbi. People, said Scroogemacher. How hard people have worked to make their place in the world. Our people and all people, past, present, and future. The room glowed in the candlelight, and it seemed to Scroogemacher that the room began to swim before his eyes. So then, this is what happened. Scroogemacher woke up and said, Oi, what a dream. He got out of bed and ate a cookie, and poured some tea from the pot, and thought about what he remembered. Some of the things made him cry, and some of the things made him laugh. He did not rush out and get a big challah and bring it to the Gernsteins. What did you expect? That a leopard should change its spots? But he unscrewed the dial in the wall that could turn back the clock in his sweatshop. He started to give with a warm hand a few pennies to the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. When he got over the shock of the Triangle Factory fire, he listened to his nephew and gave the workers most of what they demanded. And when his nephew wanted to marry that Gernstein girl, he said, okay. And it turned out that they had a daughter whom they named Rose, even if her mother did look like a weed.
You see, good things happen from a little remembering, especially on Hanukkah Shmonukkah. I'm so glad you all could come with me on this amazing journey through time, history, and all these stories. I love this book. It is a very special place in my heart for me. Because doing good deeds, for me, is what Hanukkah was all about. I remember at holiday times my bubby would take me to the store, and when you walk in there was this tree. And this tree had all these names on slips of paper. These were the names of children who weren't as well off as we were. They couldn't afford the latest Transformers, or the newest Lego set, or the greatest video games, like I often could. And so instead of my bubby taking me to pick out presents for Hanukkah, we instead would go and find presents for those less fortunate. And we would donate those gifts to the people who wanted and needed them the most around the holidays. This was a mitzvah, a good deed, a commandment. So to keep that tradition alive, I happen to keep a little tzedakah box right here on my mantle. And this Hanukkah, I'm going to be putting a couple dollars into it, hoping that some child out there gets the toy that they've always wanted. Maybe somebody's able to cook up the best latkes in the world. Maybe somebody will win it big at dreidel and share the wealth by having a delicious meal with friends and family. At the end of the day, that's what Hanukkah is all about. So, from my living room here to wherever you all are in the world, I want to wish you the happiest of Hanukkahs, the happiest of holidays, and the most sameachi of hugs. Thank you, everybody.